Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Influential Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Duncan, and as a mom and lawyer, I want to be a cheerleader for moms who don't want to give up their own goals and dreams. Around here, we celebrate moms who are making a difference and talk about ways to juggle work, motherhood, goals, faith, self-care, and more. I'm so glad you're here. The only filters we use around here are coffee filters, so pour yourself a cup and enjoy the show. On today's episode of Influential Motherhood, I am here with someone who, for all of us 70s and 80s babies, we have heard this name throughout our lives. I'm here with Shannon Miller, and I'm very excited because she is the most decorated U.S. gymnast, male or female, at the Olympic Games with a total of 7 medals. She was the 1993 and 1994 world all-around champion. As we remember the 96 Olympics, she was part of the gold-winning Magnificent Seven team. And I know that those days of watching that on our little box TVs are probably etched in all of our memories. But today she's here as a mom and as a professional and is here to talk to us about the passions that she has now kind of developed in adulthood and as a mom, and kind of talk to us about her mom hacks. So thank you, Shannon, so much for being on the Influential Motherhood podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And congratulations on all of those accolades. I feel not worthy of even trying to attempt to go through them all. And I know I didn't hit them all, but I know that for the moms who are listening, your name is one that we all know and all remember as young girls watching. So
that's very sweet.
Yeah. So all I can say is congratulations and job well done, I guess.
Well, thank you. It seems like another lifetime.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, I'm sure it does. So tell us a little bit about your family now, because you have 2 kids. So tell us just a little bit about who Shannon Miller is now here in 2019.
Oh, goodness. Well, like any mom out there, I wear a multitude of different hats every single day. So I'll roll through a few of the top line items, I suppose. So yes, I have 2 children. I have a 6-year-old daughter and 9-year-old son, and then I have our baby Rudy, who's our golden doodle that you'll
I have a golden doodle too.
and he's our lovely dog.
Yeah.
But right now I have a variety of things that I'm doing and interested in. One is my foundation, which was started in devotion to fighting childhood obesity, and has morphed more into simply kids' health and helping children get active. So we have a little over, I would say, 9,000 children in our running clubs. And this is an in-school running club where the schools don't have to pay and the kids don't have to pay, but it teaches them really just the importance of getting active and having fun doing it. So whether you run, skip, jump, hop, dance, whatever that forward motion is, let's just enjoy moving and being active.
Yes.
And then my main focus, I think, with regard to work is my company, Shannon Miller Worldwide, and we have a mission to help women make their health a priority. And as you can imagine, that takes so many different forms, whether it's fitness or nutrition or just getting to the doctor's appointments, rest and recuperation, all of those things. But certainly with my background and in my cancer diagnosis in 2011, we do a great deal with regard to cancer awareness and education.
I love it. You're doing such amazing work. And we're going to talk even more about the work that you're doing and that part of your story here in just a minute, because I think that, though it's just amazing to me the way that your story and your goals to have kind of intertwined together to create this bigger story. And now you can speak about, how it has really impacted you in terms of making your health a priority and what that meant for you during your cancer diagnosis. So
absolutely. It's funny how life works, that I'm doing all of these things that I never imagined as an athlete I would do. And for most of you that would remember me from the 90s, I was extremely shy growing up. I mean, people would interview me, and I had one gentleman come up to me just recently, and he said, yes, I was I was interviewing you over radio after the 96 Olympics, and you nodded your answers.
On a radio show.
On a radio show.
That's
But
funny.
I was so shy. And then I think when I retired from gymnastics, I became even more kind of withdrawn, and I just kind of lost some of that confidence that I gained through gymnastics. And I think through this pursuit of kind of health and wellness, but also some things that I fell into, I kind of fell into gymnastics commentary. And my first big commentary job ended up being the Olympic Games.
That's a big one.
that was a big one. And so it just kind of came about. And all of a sudden I was put in these positions that I was really kind of fearful of. I had no idea how I was going to do it or what I was going to do. And I just started looking at it like I did a new beam routine. All right, let's get to work. What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? And I started doing that. So I kept doing commentary, and now I do so much speaking, which I never imagined in my entire life I would be speaking in front of an audience, much less speaking about, ovarian cancer or any of these things. And I think through all of those kind of new things that were thrown at me, that I kind of said, okay, let's try to figure this out. I think that background also has helped me become a better mom.
Yeah.
And be less fearful of things. And I think when we become moms, we also kind of become that mama bear as well.
Yes.
And I think that's also helped me in my work. It's given me more confidence and less embarrassment of mistakes and failures, because as a mom, you realize, yep, you're going to do it every day. And you're going to get up the next day and you're going to try again.
Yes.
But it's just interesting.
The pressure
how
never
everything
goes
works together.
Yeah. And the pressure, I feel like, the pressure is never relieved, in motherhood, because like you said, we are always going to be mom. And so we can make good decisions, bad decisions. And as moms, we will make both of those types of decisions, but the pressure just never really completely goes away. So I think that it can be really challenging, but it sounds like you've kind of been able to weave motherhood into your work and kind of tie all of this together. So you just told us, that when you were as an Olympian, when you were really kind of in the height of your career, your gymnastics career, your Olympic career, you were very shy. And so I think a question that this is not related to motherhood, but that I think we would all kind of be curious to ask an Olympian who was a teenager, so we could relate because we were teenage girls at the time, a lot of us who listened to this show. Did you feel the pressure that was on you? Did you realize that the whole world was watching? Because it was a different era. There was no social media. So I'm curious whether you felt that as a teenage girl.
It's funny. It's a great question. And it was so different. And I'm not going to say that there wasn't any pressure. But I think the pressure that I felt was primarily the pressure that I put on myself, because I wanted to do a good job. Yes, I had trained hard, but I wasn't the only one training. My coaches were in the gym with me every day. My parents had supported me and sacrificed so much. And, so I think I don't know that it's pressure in necessarily a negative way, but it was, I wanted to do a good job. I put on the United States of America uniform. I was wearing red, white, and blue with USA across my back. I wanted to take it seriously, and I wanted to do a really good job. If I was going to take that spot, I needed to own up to it. And so that's kind of what drove me. But, I think that kind of understanding of doing something and competing for something that's so much bigger than yourself is important. But it's also different than kind of the nerves you feel, or at least in my mind, it was different than the nerves I felt right before balance beam routine. That's just, almost your body kind of gearing up again. And I tell young athletes this all the time. Nerves are not a bad thing.
Absolutely.
You just have to look at it correctly. If you're not nervous, then you may not care.
Yes.
And that's when you know that you really shouldn't be in that position. You need to step away. And I felt that. And there was a point in time in my career when I had that moment of, why am I not nervous? And I really did need to reevaluate what was going on. But I think it's really important to understand where the pressure is coming from, and then try to understand, is it a positive influence or is it a negative, and try to work with that.
Absolutely. So back then, when you were kind of at the height of your gymnastics career, could you see past those Olympic years and kind of know what Shannon Miller of, maybe at 25 or 30 or 35 or 40 years old wanted to do or be? Did you
Oh,
know what you
goodness.
wanted to be when you grew up, or did it just feel like you were kind of living in that moment of the height of your gymnastics career?
Well, it was a little bit of both. And to
Hmm.
your point earlier, you're right. There was no social media. There were barely cell phones. There was barely the internet.
Right,
I
right.
certainly didn't have the internet. I
I
didn't
didn't
have
either.
a computer. So you didn't realize the whole world was watching and waiting, and so you kind of could be a little bit more kind of normal and kind of do your own thing. And my parents had always taught me, don't read your own media. Not that I
Hmm.
was regularly picking up a newspaper or the news, but they always said, don't read your own media because it doesn't matter whether
Yeah,
something
that's
said
great.
is good or something said is bad. That doesn't affect what you go out and do each day. You go out, you give it 100%, and that's all you got. So
Yep,
that's okay.
I love
Um,
it.
and I think that was a great lesson for me. And I think the other thing my parents did for me was help me understand that there was life after gymnastics.
Hmm.
Yes, gymnastics is great. We're going to support you. But in our household, education came before that. Family, education. Um, yes, we needed an after school sport. We were expected to be active, whether it was gymnastics or anything else. But it was never life as gymnastics. And I
Yeah,
think
that's good.
it was really important. And it helped me keep that balance because when I was at school and I went to public school, graduated with my regular high school class.
Hmm.
But that was important for me to kind of have that time away from sport to just be a kid. And then that time in the gym where I didn't have to worry about my math test the next day.
Yes.
I could just focus on beam. And having that was really good. Now, I will say that the transition from Olympic athlete to non Olympic athlete is still significant. There still
Hmm.
is a weighty transition there, and you learn a lot about yourself. But I do think having that education, continuing with my college education at that point, helped kind of give me a little bit softer landing. It kind of helped me fill my days while I figured out what was next.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say was the hardest part of that transition?
I think the hardest part is how abrupt it can be.
Hmm.
For me, I went from standing on the gold medal podium and you have, hundreds of thousands, if not, millions of people around the world all cheering for you in that one wonderful moment. And then it's almost like the next day everything stops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't really the next day. We went on
Right.
tour and that helped. But there is that moment in time where, I went home. I moved out from my parents' home to live on campus at the University of Oklahoma, where I had started taking classes while training for the games.
Hmm.
And so I didn't have kind of that family support system and structure right there. I had lost the structure of going to the gym 40
Yep.
plus hours a
Yeah.
week. I wasn't expected to be anywhere. How was I going to fill that time? Then you lose kind of your second family, your sport family,
Hmm.
that you get to see. These are your best friends, the people you've bonded with over goals and everything else. And you feel very alone. And I think that was maybe the most difficult part because for me, that also meant a little bit of that loss of confidence that I'd gained through sport and a little bit more moving back into my shell.
Yeah.
And it was at that point, there was a time, kind of in my early 20s, where I realized I have to get out of my apartment. I mean, I have to, other than just going to class, I
Hmm.
was coming home, doing homework, and watching Seinfeld. I mean,
Yeah.
that was unless I had a job or something that I had to go do, that was what I was doing. And I was not being social at all. And I felt like I had to push myself into uncomfortable situations. And so that's when I started taking on different things and deciding to try new things and focusing on my health a little bit more because in
Hmm.
gymnastics, my health was kind of taken care of. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. As an
I worked
athlete.
out plenty.
Right.
The fitness was covered. Nutrition, I mean, I ate what my parents prepared and they tried to, do the best they could as far as nutrition and kind of what we knew. You couldn't Google everything at that point, but so I just didn't ever have to worry about those things. And so all of a sudden I did. I had to
Yeah.
start taking my own health into consideration.
Well, and it sounds like that might have been part of the launching point for what was to come later on. But before we get to that, so you were in college, and then you went to law school. So this is particularly interesting to me because I went to law school. I work at a law school, and so I love hearing about folks who have been former athletes. Which this seems to be kind of a thing, that there are former athletes who end up deciding to go on to law school. So can you talk just for a minute about that decision and kind of why that was kind of part of your plan and part of one of your goals, and what that transition was like for you as part of your professional transition?
Absolutely. Well, first off, it was not part of my plan.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
No, it seems like it would be, but no, so I went to, did my undergrad, and where I was finishing up, I had transferred to the University of Houston. They had a tremendous entrepreneurship program. So I had gotten my marketing degree,
Mm-hmm.
and I stayed on as for this 2-year entrepreneurship program that they had. There were, at the time, I think there were only 8 in the country. And that really spoke to me. And I was really excited about maybe one day starting my own business and whatnot. And I thought that was a great avenue. Well, one of the last classes that I took as part of this program was a business law class.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fascinating. I just took to it. I loved it, but I also realized how little I truly knew about law.
Yeah.
And here I was as an athlete. I had agents, and I was signing contracts, and I realized I really did not know what was in the contracts. All of the little verbiage that you kind of gloss over that actually means something.
Right.
And, when you're 20, you just don't think about it that much.
Yeah.
And you hear these stories about athletes getting taken advantage of or just not knowing what they're getting into. And I was fearful of that. And so, and I was very fortunate. I've had wonderful representation. I've had wonderful people around me. So, but I just wanted to be more prepared and understand more about what was going on. You could interpret that as I'm a control freak. It's pretty okay. But I decided I was going to take the LSAT. I was going to study for it. I was going to take the LSAT. And if I got a decent enough score that someone let me in their law school, all right, then that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, and I ended up going to Boston College. I just fell in love with their campus, and it really was a tremendous experience. And I think there was probably maybe a couple of semesters in there where I thought I might go ahead and practice law. Mm-hmm. I really liked intellectual property. That was fascinating for me.
Yeah.
But really, by the middle or end of law school, I knew I wanted to start my own company. I wanted to do my own thing. And I really, really enjoyed this idea of working in women's health, where we could truly help women make their health a priority and help them understand that was okay. I had so many women in my life. My mother is maybe one that I look to often, that,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, I'm going to get you guys to your doctor's appointment and your dentist appointment and whatnot. And now I don't really have time to go to mine. And, over the years, you watch that and you realize but it's so important that we all focus on our health and not feel selfish about it.
So tell us a little bit more about the start of your organization and those efforts that you started, and then where your cancer diagnosis kind of fell into that part of the story.
Well, I started working on launching the company, I guess maybe 2008. And
Mm-hmm.
It started when I learned that I was expecting. I was expecting our first child. And I was going to write these little, I love to write. I've written several books. And I decided I was going to write these little to-go books, is what I called them. And they would be like, you'd get to the gym and I would forget the 10 exercises that I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
and then I would do the elliptical and go home. So, okay, the 10 exercises. And then what about yoga, 10 yoga positions or yoga routines that I wanted to remember. And now, granted, this was right before all of the different Instagram, and you could Google every exercise.
Yeah.
So we're back in still carrying around a book days. And so I started doing that, and I found out I was expecting and realized, oh my goodness, if I'm going to shoot photos for these, I better do it quick because I'm 8 weeks along already.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that, and I was speaking to a gentleman who they were taking the photos, and he was a friend of ours, and he said, what are you trying to do with all this stuff? And he really kind of forced me to think about what was I doing. And I really sat down and decided that what I was doing is creating a company. I wanted to focus on women's health in every aspect, not just fitness and not just nutrition, but really that mission of don't feel selfish about taking care of your health. And so I started working on this and worked on it for over a year. And then in July of 2009, I launched the company. It was going fantastic. We moved into the fall. About the same time, I was asked to host a weekly radio show.
Mm-hmm.
And so every weekend, I would interview nurses, physicians on every health topic you could possibly imagine. And as we moved into the fall, we were doing a lot on cancer awareness. And so we were talking about that and the importance of, getting to the doctor and doing your self checks and, all those good things. And it was about that time with all these new programs and business going crazy. I was just becoming overwhelmed. Our son had just turned a year old. I was wanting to really soak in every moment of him, and the holidays were coming up, and I was just overwhelmed. And in a good way, but just too much. And I had a doctor's appointment coming up, and I thought, I'll push it off till next year. It's fine. And I called up to cancel the appointment, move it to next year. And it was at that moment I realized I was not doing all of those things that I was asking other women to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was not walking the walk. And so when the nurse came back on the line, or the receptionist came back on the line, I said, okay, I feel really guilty. Let me just take the first available, get on a wait list, whatever it takes. I was going to be out of town on the date that it was scheduled. So, all right, I'll just get on a list. And she said, oh, that's great. Can you come over now? Because that was a cancellation on the other line. And it was that morning that I found out that I had a baseball-sized cyst on my left ovary.
That is incredible. And the irony of just, the reason for calling was that you were feeling overwhelmed, which is a lot of the motivation behind your company, right? I mean, that women need to prioritize their health and not feel guilty about it. But how incredible that you had that voice kind of, you kind of gave yourself that pep talk while on hold, and then were able to get in. Had you had any symptoms prior to going in for that appointment?
If I was asked, and I was asked many times when, that was I think November, and then by January I was in surgery, and it was after the surgery that's when they diagnosed me with ovarian cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that point I, a couple weeks after, decided to be public about it. Now we had some understanding of what it was.
Right.
And I was interviewed and asked many times, did you have any symptoms? And there was actually one interview where Robin Roberts had come down, and she was interviewing me. And my husband just happened to be there. He's normally not there during interviews. And she asked me if I had any symptoms. And I think I told her, no, I had no symptoms. I had no idea. And he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, do you remember calling me at work with horrible stomach pains? You actually called me at work. And for me to, I know what pain is.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're an Olympic athlete.
So it wouldn't have just been like, oh, a sour stomach. So, and then it dawned on me, I had been doubled over on the floor of our son's nursery. And I called him because I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get him out of his crib.
Oh, wow.
When he wakes up.
Yeah.
And so he reminded me of that. I remembered, being bloated, more than usual for, what women typically go through.
Yeah.
And there were some things. I had sudden weight loss. I had lost 6 pounds within a month, but I had just stopped nursing our son. And, your body's going through all of these crazy changes after having a baby. I didn't really know what was normal and what was not. And so I just brushed them off as nothing. And it wasn't until after that interview that I really started looking at what are the signs and symptoms of ovarian cancer. And wow,
Yeah.
I had 3 out of the 4 main symptoms, and I had no idea.
Wow. And what's so scary to me about that is that I feel like there are so many things that as busy moms, we not only do we not want to complain,
Mhm.
but we just kind of chalk it up to, well, I'm busy and I'm tired and, I'm not getting a lot of rest and I'm not always eating the most healthy foods because I'm busy and I'm taking care of a little one and I'm working and I'm on the go and, and it's easy to really kind of sweep these symptoms under the rug and just kind of chalk it up to like, oh, it's no big deal, and not really be able to put it all together. And I think that that's something that is scary, to think about how many women and moms are diagnosed, thankfully, diagnosed. And then you just kind of wonder how many of those might have been diagnosed earlier if we had kind of been like you're trying to do, give permission to moms to check in with themselves and to speak up when they don't feel right, because that's how some of these things can get caught early, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
And it's hard. And I've gone to where I write things down, even if it's just plugging it in my calendar.
mhm,
If I have a stomach ache, then it's not going to hurt anything for me to write it down. And it's probably nothing. And
right.
99.9% of the time, it's a stomach ache and it's gone by the next day. But if I write it down and I find out that I'm having a stomach ache, 4 days a week for 2 weeks, I'm going to go
Mhm,
see the doctor.
yeah.
So writing it down tends to help me because I will absolutely forget. I will forget anything that
Yeah.
happened the day before. I mean, we're just on overload. So it's just important for me to kind of write things down and not feel bad about doing that. And just kind of, like you said, checking in with myself, just like I check in with the kids and my husband and my
Mhm.
parents and my friends. Just check in with yourself too.
Yeah, I'm so glad and so thankful for you that you went, that you kind of talked yourself into going and that everything aligned for you to be able to go that day. So, I hear your story and I think, okay, you had a 14 or like a 14-month-old, is that about right?
Yeah.
And a cancer diagnosis, a baseball-sized tumor, and being a young mom with a little one is exhausting just that in and of itself. It's kind of like, okay, enough said, that's exhausting. And then you add this really serious cancer battle to the mix. So I feel like that would send a lot of moms, I'm including myself in that, and it wouldn't send everybody over the edge, but kind of over that proverbial edge, right? I mean, I think we all feel like we're kind of teetering on the, like
We're on the brink. Oh,
we're
we're on the
on
brink.
the, yeah, we are on the brink at any given moment when they're that little and can't really communicate. And then you add a serious health issue to the mix. How did you remain positive through all of this? And I'm sure it wasn't always, glitter and rainbows and positivity, but you were able to kind of keep your eye on kind of your goals and staying healthy and positive. So how did you do that?
I think there's several things that really helped me, and I really, at one point, after I learned that it was a cancer, and it was a little bit backward for me because by the time that I learned it was cancer, they had removed the tumor, and it wasn't until a couple weeks later I found out I would need to go through this pretty aggressive chemotherapy regimen.
Hmm.
And I think at that point something clicked for me, and I went from kind of this victim mentality of everything happening to me, and I
Yeah.
really had no say in anything, and I had so many questions and there were so few answers, and reverting back to that competitive mentality that I knew so well through sport, and really
Hmm.
thinking about what's my next move? What is the plan of action? And I think at that point, with my physicians, we were able to kind of create that plan of action. I think that helped a lot. But so many of those lessons learned through sport, things like goal setting, whole different goal setting
Yeah.
set. This was not about, doing 15 routines or winning a medal. This was, often, can I get up and get dressed and walk twice around the dining room table?
Mm,
That was my day. That was
yeah.
my goal. And there were things like teamwork that came back. full force. And I kind of lost what it meant to be a team after
Mm-hmm.
leaving sport. And all of a sudden I realized I had a very different team, but this
Yeah.
was my team. And not just the medical. I was very blessed to have incredible support from my husband, who took on so much during that time when I frankly just couldn't get out of bed, to neighbors and friends and family. I mean, people bringing over meals so I didn't have to cook or smell marinara sauce.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there are all of those things that helped so much. And so, you know, we always think about, you know, and I'm always asked about me going through it and how tough it was for me, but really the people around me that took on so much during that time, helping with our son, helping do laundry, you know, all of those
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
they took the weight off of me so I could focus on my health, which is what really needed to happen at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I'm not going to say I was positive 24/7. I think you have to have those pity party moments where you cry
Right.
and scream, and then when you're done, you plant your feet and you take that next step. And I think there's also that portion of feeling like you're not a great mother because you're not there for, and I'm going to try not to cry saying this, but
Mm-hmm.
because you're not there for your child all of that time. And I had to constantly remind myself that what I was doing, trying to rest, trying to, you know, go through the chemo and just get through it, that's ultimately how I was going to best be a mother to him,
Yeah.
that I was going
Yeah.
to get there. And that was really hard. But looking back, I know that was the best thing. And, you know, I was able to spend, you know, time with him, but I wasn't able to do everything with him like I
Yeah.
maybe would have liked to. But he is such a compassionate child. And I almost feel like going through that with him and him going through that with me. I mean, even when he was a very early talker,
Mm-hmm.
and at 2 years old, I mean, we would almost have these like full conversations. It was
Oh.
crazy, but he would remind me if I was, you know, this was, you know, a little ways after, you know, I had finished chemotherapy
Mm-hmm.
and my hair had not grown back yet or anything. And so he would see me in something other than my pajamas and he would know I was, you know, going to work or something, because usually I would just go to the store in pajamas.
Yeah.
Because at that point I was over the embarrassment. And so he would say, "Mom, don't forget your hair." And he just grew up with
Oh.
it. It doesn't really matter what hairstyle or
Yeah.
what you look like.
Yeah.
You just, hey, grab your hair if you want it.
That's so sweet. And I feel like, you know, at that age, it's easy in that moment to put that pressure on ourselves, you know, when they're that little, to say, you know, I'm, I'm using air quotes here. I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z as a mom. But really, like you said, the biggest thing he needed you to do was rest and take care of yourself and, you know, and get through it so that you could be there for him longer term. And that's a lesson that, you know, he'll be able to understand. And I bet he already does, you know, now that he's older and can hear more about that story. So I did, when I hear you talk about this, you know, I think about myself as having been a competitive figure skater and then a college athlete, and always very healthy. And I had my first big medical setback at the end of last year. I had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy
Mm.
and a big, you know, that was an emergency surgery. And thankfully, the whole thing was, you know, pretty short lived. Within a week, you know, I was physically recovered at least. But as somebody who had always been athletic and healthy, that was a big kind of change for me, you know, during that time, to kind of
Mhm.
go, whoa, my body is not this, I don't mean this outwardly, but kind of like a perfect machine like I thought it was, you know, like I'm not, I can't take my health for granted. Had you kind of thought about your body in that way, that like, this is a really well-oiled machine that isn't going to break down, as having been a former Olympic athlete? Or did you kind of have, I guess, a better perspective than I did in terms of, you know, things can go wrong, you know, even when I'm out, when I seem outwardly to be, you know, moving along just fine.
But and I think the hardest part for me to kind of wrap my mind around, um, was, you know, as an athlete, you know that things can happen.
Yeah.
Injuries are going to happen, whether it's overuse or a freak accident or, like I had broken an elbow before the 92
Yeah.
games. So
Yeah.
things are going to happen. You know that your health is not always going to be there. Things can happen, but that's more, I'm in a sport and I could get injured and
Right.
all of that.
Right.
It's something that you're kind of choosing to do instead of something just kind of happening out of the blue that
Yeah.
you
To you.
you really have no control over. And
Yeah.
I'm probably not explaining that exactly correctly, but I think also I had not dealt with a lot of cancer or health issues in my family or friends. There was a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, but not a lot. Not until 2008. So this was 3 years before I was diagnosed. My
Mm-hmm.
mom was diagnosed with a different type of cancer. They're not genetically related. She was cervical cancer, and seeing her go through that surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, dropping down to 86 pounds at one point,
Oh my goodness.
it was eye opening for me. And as a daughter, not really being able to do anything. I mean, I could be there and I could support, but I couldn't change it,
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
difficult. And so, kind of being on that side, it opened my eyes to, I mean, my mom's always been healthy and always been extremely active and all of that. So I never thought, why me? I never thought it couldn't happen to me.
Yeah.
I just didn't really think about it at
Yeah.
all. And I think
Yeah.
in your 20s, you just aren't as concerned about your health. You kind of,
Right.
your parents have always taken care of it, getting you to doctor's appointments and whatnot. And then in your 20s, you're kind of supposed to do it, but you don't always do it because you're
Right.
too busy doing everything else. And so then, once early 30s, and then, when you have kids, it's all about your children. And so I think sometimes we just kind of don't think about those things, and it's not a pleasant thought. So for me, it's really been trying to remind myself to not be scared,
Yeah.
but also
Yeah.
understand the importance of getting to those checkups and catching things as early as possible.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you were able to go into it with that perspective, and that it sounds like you had some bad days and some hard days, but that you were able to find the positivity and kind of think about what this was going to mean long term in terms of your fight and your battle with it, and coming out on the other side of it. So, as you have really leaned into advocating for children's health and women's health, and as we think about the moms who are listening, from your perspective, how do you think moms can take better care of themselves and each other? What are some of the big ways you think that moms can kind of implement some positive health things into their lives today?
Well, I'll give my 2 cents for all of what that's worth.
Yep,
But
that's why you're here. So go for it.
I think that one of the things that I have really enjoyed as a mom is getting to know other moms and having that open line of communication where there's just no judging. It's just we're all kind of, like you said, in the trenches. We're there to help each other out. We're there to uplift each other. I love, the mothers that I know that have older children is
Mm-hmm.
really nice because you kind of can get a glimpse of what's to come. And then you can help the ones that are having younger children. And, you don't want to say, oh, I've been there, do it like this, but at least you can offer, some valuable advice. I mean, whether it's taken or not, I think there's always great advice out there. And there's not one way to be a mom.
Yeah.
There's all different ways to be a mom. And so getting as much information as possible, I think is a really great thing. As far as kind of taking care of yourself as a mom, I think it's extremely hard to find the time, to find the wherewithal, to not feel guilty about it. But remind yourself over and over that it is not a selfish act. In fact, it is a very selfless act. Because the fact is, if mom is not working well, then the family's not working all that well. If you're not healthy, if you're not productive and energized and all of those great things by taking care of yourself, then you cannot be there for all of those who depend on you. And whether that's your kids or your spouse or extended family or your friends or your community or your job. I mean, it's everything. And it all starts with your health. And if there's nothing I've learned more in the last 8 years, is that really your health is critical. That doesn't mean we all have to be in perfect health all of the time.
Right.
But if we can take those steps each day to do a little bit better. And I think it's important to talk about baby steps.
Yes, I love that.
I always talk about it like a marathon. You don't get up one day and decide, okay, I'm going to run a marathon. Let's go.
Definitely not.
No, you work a little bit each day. You start with a walk around the block, and then you grow from there. And you're training for it, and that's kind of what you have to do. Take those baby steps. So maybe today it's replacing one soda or sweet tea with a glass of water. That's a big deal over time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Getting 10 minutes. I offer 10-minute fitness videos on my YouTube channel. Just because 10 minutes is a big deal. Do 10 minutes in the morning, and you know what? You're going to feel energized for the day. And if you can slide in to 10 minutes in the afternoon, maybe even 10 minutes in the evening, there's your 30 minutes that you're supposed to get in each day. And you're able to kind of manipulate your day into getting that. And I guarantee you will be more productive.
Yes.
You will be more efficient. All of those things just work better. Our brains work better. Our bodies work better. So and just kind of reminding yourself over and over that it's not just a nice thing to do and a kind of icing on the cake thing to do. It's something that we need to do to be the best we can be for our families.
I love that. And I love that you are giving moms permission to take baby steps with it, because I think society that we live in today, and, define that as you want, whether it's social media or just kind of this busy kind of hustle, all in or not kind of mentality that, I think are fed a lot of, that it's easy to say, okay, I have to go from couch to marathon and there's no in between. This kind of mentality that you're, failing if what you're doing is 10, or if you're giving it 10 minutes a day, that's failing, and that's not the truth. And I love that, if you're going from 0 to 10 minutes, that's a lot. I mean, that's, 5 days a week, that's 50 minutes, over the course of the week. And, that's an hour more than you were doing before. And I love that you're giving moms permission to kind of ease into it, because I think that a lot of people won't do anything if they think that it has to be an hour a day, immediately.
And I'm one of them. If you're going to tell me that I have got to make every single meal from scratch with only the healthiest of ingredients, every single meal and snack every day, I'm going to give up, because I know that that's not something that I am able to do. And some people can. It's incredible. And my hat's off to you. I know that that's not an area I'm great at.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do the very best that I can. I'm going to, get my kids to eat as healthy as possible, and myself as well. And I'm going to work on it a little bit at a time. But I'm kind of done expecting perfection of myself. That doesn't mean that I don't strive for perfection. It doesn't mean I don't strive to do the best and be the best I can. It just means that I'm not going to be upset or feel bad if I don't make it there, because it's kind of this elusive goal.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you think you're perfect at something, you find out you're really not in another area. So, I just think the baby steps approach is really important, and kind of this idea of everything in moderation, this balance that we can have, where we can kind of let ourselves off the hook just a little bit. We work really hard to be the very best moms we can, the very best people we can. So we don't have to really give ourselves any more sweat over the small stuff. We just don't have to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving us all that, permission, because I think as women, to look to a mom who we say, exhibits all the signs of success, and to hear you say, yes, I'm successful in so many things, but success doesn't mean perfection is really important. And that's an important message for moms to hear. So when you think about women's health and kind of where we are as a society, what do you hope to see in terms of support or changes for women's health in the next, let's say 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think, for me and what I do, we focus on kind of the smaller goals, like I said, the baby steps approach. The most important thing for me is to help women understand that not only can they make their health a priority, but that it's okay to do so, and then arm them with the tools to do just that. So whether it is getting 10-minute fitness videos out there so they can just get started, click it on your phone, get your 10 minutes in, and it's a workout. I have to film those things, and I'm usually sore the day after. Whether it's nutrition tips, whether it's mom hacks, whether it's reminders that it is so important to get to your doctor, even when you're feeling great, because you kind of create that baseline and open the lines of communication with your physician, and writing down things that feel off, because frankly, we know our bodies better than anyone else. And we have to be our own best health advocates. And we can do that by really thinking about our bodies and paying attention to what's going on. But I think for me, I do a lot with diabetes. I do a lot of work with cancer, certainly. And that's, one of my biggest passions is really just, like so many others out there, let's start finding cures. Let's not only raise awareness, let's do that. Let's educate on signs and symptoms, and let's do all of those important things. Let's also raise a ton of money for the research that is going to provide better medications, more opportunities for those that have been diagnosed and post-diagnosis, because I think anyone that's ever been through a cancer diagnosis knows that even if the day comes and they say you're cancer-free, it doesn't end there.
Yeah.
The journey is ongoing. And sometimes that's even more difficult of a portion, because all of a sudden the medical team is gone, the support system is gone, and you're still feeling the post effects of your treatment.
Yeah.
And so things like that help survivors, but ultimately finding a cure for, as many cancers as we possibly can, getting more detection, earlier detection available for things like ovarian cancer and many of the rare cancers is so important.
Amen. I think a lot of women and moms would completely be behind that. And I think that you're doing great work in trying to get us there and highlight both the big and small ways, that women's health can see changes. And that includes the baby steps and then the cures too, because I think we have to hit both of the marks there. So,
well, I'm trying. I realize that I am not, I am not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. What I can do best, I hope, is utilize any platform that I gained from my previous career. If I can give good things a voice, then if that's what I can do, I want to do it. And I want to do it the very best that I possibly can.
Yeah. Well, I think you are doing it, and it's making a difference for sure. So as we start to wrap up, I have a couple more quick questions. I love to ask moms who are on the show about their favorite mom hack. So what's the thing in your life that you feel like has been your little piece of ingenuity in making your family's life a little less chaotic or a little more fun, or whatever it might be? What's your mom hack?
So glimpse into my life. I don't do well in chaos. So I am very type A, very organized. I love organization. It's my thing. It's my secret passion. I really should have a show, but
oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, you should.
My gosh. No, I seriously, I love organization. And so for me, that's probably my biggest mom hack, a place for everything and everything in its place. And I want to be able to clean my house up in 20 minutes or less.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
at least for the areas that people are going to see.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my goal, is creating spaces that allow the kids to pick up their own stuff and put it away. I feel like that's part of being in the family.
Yep.
That, you have some responsibilities and you help out. And that's been a tough one for me because, half the time, and as all the moms out there know, you could get it done faster and better. But you have to kind of hold back, and that's been a tough one for me, and let them do it their way.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably hard as a type A personality.
It's so hard.
Let that go.
It's so hard, but I've gotten better at it, and so that's one of my biggest things, is just making sure that we're organized, because that allows us to not forget as many things in the morning on the way to school when we're doing fine on time, and then all of a sudden someone sees a bug on the way out to the car and we're 10 minutes late. So,
yes.
So it just helps me stay organized. I think even in things like packing lists, like I travel a lot for work, and sometimes we take the kids and different things. So I have a ready to go packing list for everything, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we travel.
That's so smart.
Just my list.
Yeah.
And it changes a little bit as they grow up. Suddenly
Yeah.
I don't have to have diapers on the list anymore, which is
Amen,
kind of,
right?
yeah, exciting, but kind of sad also.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's another thing. Even their artwork. I found this great place that they take all of their artwork. I mean, you know how much stuff they bring home.
Oh my gosh.
So much
piles.
artwork.
Yes.
And you don't want to let it, you don't want to throw it away, and they want to look at it and they want to keep it, and you do, and whatnot. So I have a plastic bin for each of their years of artwork, and then I send it off to this great place that puts it. They do high resolution photos, and they put it in a book. So you can just keep the book on the shelf, and the kids can look at their artwork. You can send one to grandma and grandpa, and it's fabulous. I still have their artwork. It's stacked neatly in the garage or attic, but it's not strewn about the house anymore.
Oh, I love that. I feel like on the weeks that we have somebody who helps clean our home every couple weeks, and inevitably right before she comes is the day that I end up, my son comes home from kindergarten with a big pile of art. And, you kind of have to like decide, am I going to keep this or throw some of it away? And he's very attached to his art. And I feel like when I throw it away, I have to sneak it into the trash. It's terrible. But I try to keep as much as I can, but I'm never ready in that moment in a hurry to have to make that decision. And so I feel like all I do is move these piles around my house. There are all these piles of artwork, and half of them are crumpled, but they're so cute. And I just am moving these crumpled piles of art around the house and trying to figure out what to do with them. So I love that idea. Do you know the name of the place where you send it?
It's called Archive.
Archive. Okay, I think I've heard about this. So I think I need to get on this archive situation and get some books going of artwork. That's great. What a great idea.
But I also did break. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did break down, and I'm probably the last mom to come to the star chart, but I did break down and finally start the star chart last week. And
what is the star chart?
The star chart. So
the star chart.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So keeping track of, and they kind of know their chores, and they kind of know what they're supposed to do. But I know for me, it was so important to keep track of things, like even the number of balance beam routines I would do, and which ones I missed a skill and which skill did I miss. And I was able to look back and see where I was having issues. And I thought, not only for me, but for the kids to kind of see what can we work on to do a little bit better.
Yeah.
They have never fed the dog more food than this last week.
the poor dog
making out like a bandit. They're like, no, I got pet duty. I can do it. Everything has gotten just amazing. And
That's
I don't know
really
if
funny.
it's short-lived, but I was a latecomer to the star chart.
Yeah.
I am fully on board with
That's
it
awesome.
at this moment.
That is awesome.
And we have made
That's really funny.
That's the only avenue to a toy or to a, ice cream date. the only avenue is through the star chart.
Oh, there you go. And you can give all the stars for cleaning up in 20 minutes, right? So
that's right. There are bonus stars available should I need help somewhere.
I love that. That's so funny. So I know that, a lot of people are wondering. So you have a son and a daughter. Are either of them into gymnastics?
A little bit. So I started both of them in gymnastics when they were about 18 months old. So neither of them was walking at 18 months old.
I love it.
And I had a friend, she owns a gym here, and she said, bring our son, bring him in. He just hasn't really seen kids his age walking. We lived in a condominium at the time, and we were the youngest by about 2 generations. And so he really had not seen that many children.
Yeah.
And she said he'll be walking in a week. And he was walking by the second class.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome.
Not that gymnastics did that, but being able to see the other kids walk around and be in a pit and trying to do things. He was like, oh, wait a second, that looks fun.
Yeah.
But I love gymnastics at a young age because it really is a full body workout. I mean, if you've ever jumped into a foam pit and tried to get out, it's a workout.
It is.
But they learn colors and shapes. They learn to listen to someone other than mom, especially at that really young age. And so it's been really great. He's kind of moved into the ninja warrior classes.
Oh, how fun. Yes.
And our daughter still goes. She goes 1 hour on Saturdays, but her love, she loves horses. She loves riding, and she just started girls lacrosse.
Oh, fun. That's awesome. Good for her.
So she
That's
loves
incredible.
That.
Well, I bet that's fun for you to be able to watch them kind of find their own passions and the things that get them excited. But how neat that you're able to share such a big part of your life with them as well. So that's pretty cool.
No, it's fun. And our goal has always been, let's help them or allow them to find their passion. And as long as they're passionate about something, they'll do well at it.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
They don't have to love gymnastics just because I did.
Yeah. Well, and that's good. I think that's a good, healthy way to approach it is to introduce it to them, but to not make it something that they have to do. So as we head into 2020, we're heading into an Olympic year. What should we be excited about in terms of Olympics?
Well, gymnastics, of course, but
of course,
I am such a fan of all Olympic sports. I am an Olympic junkie. I love the Olympics. I love the fact that you get introduced to sports that you don't get to regularly see on television. And I have had the wonderful benefit of, I've worked every Olympics since I finished competing in 1996. I've done commentary and analysis, and it's so much fun for me to be sitting on the other side and cheering them on, but also sharing their stories, because these athletes just do amazing things. And I posted something on Instagram the other day. I'm so excited for the Olympics, and let's not wait till next summer to start cheering these athletes on. They're working hard now.
Yeah, they're getting ready now.
They're getting ready now. They're gearing up, and it's really just incredible. And I think on the gymnastics side, we're going to have an amazing team. Of course, I imagine the team's not chosen yet, not until next summer, but I imagine Simone Biles will lead the team. And I mean, she's just truly amazing to watch. She is so much fun to watch. And what I always worry about is that people don't maybe even understand how difficult the moves are that she's competing, because she makes them look so easy.
Yeah. She's like a little powerhouse.
She is. My legs are turning to jello on my last tumbling pass, and she's like, it's a walk in the park, no big deal.
Yeah. She does make it look easy.
But it's so much fun. I hope people. I know that the Olympics has changed so much, and we watch it on our phones and our iPads and everything else. But I still feel like it's a great family event where everyone can get together and cheer everyone on. And I'm, of course, always, Team USA, but at the same time, I just love cheering on really great athleticism. I just think these athletes give so much. And for the few that end up actually making a team, making their country's team, it is just such a special experience.
It really is. And as someone who, had dreams of, speaking for myself, I had dreams of, going to the Olympics and didn't, and so as I look at these kids, and now that I'm 35, and I look at these kids really, who have poured their heart and souls and so much time, literally blood, sweat, and tears into getting to those moments. And I just think it is incredible to me what they and their families have put into it. And you just can't help, no matter, like you said, no matter really where they're from, what country they're representing, just to appreciate that and cheer them on is, I think, really important. And it's kind of I feel like it's always such a feel good thing for our world, to be part of, especially just, in times where there's a lot of negative news, to be able to hear these really amazing stories. So thank you for being there to share those stories with those of us who are watching.
Absolutely. Looking forward to Tokyo and excited about it.
It's going to be great. Well, you have done such incredible work, and, congratulations on overcoming your battle with cancer, and thank you for all that you're doing for women and for children, and for those of us who, are moms just trying to find those 10 minutes a day. It's so helpful, all that you're doing. So remind us as we wrap up, where can we find you online, and where can we learn more about the work that you're doing for women and for kids?
Oh, absolutely. So it's really easy. ShannonMiller.com is my website, and you can reach me on social channels through that and kind of keep up with all that I'm doing.
Great. Very good. And I'll link to all of that in the show notes. And best of luck being there with those athletes next summer in Tokyo. And thank you again, Shannon, for all that you're doing for women.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so thankful for the moms who share their stories on here on the show and in our fun Instagram community. I'd love for you to connect with me online at Influential Motherhood on Instagram and Facebook to continue the conversation, or just say hello. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star rating and a written review in the Apple Podcast app. It's how you can help get the show in front of moms looking for episodes just like this one. I hope you'll find a way to influence your work or community for good this week. Don't forget, you can listen to other episodes or learn more about the show at www.influentialmotherhood.com. See you next week.